I'm just joking. It's good to be together in the house of the Lord. Let's just open in a word of prayer and ask the Lord's blessing on our time, and Jacob will get to going. Lord, thank you for this time that we can go with Jacob and Elizabeth in their memory, and as they refresh their memory and share with us today what you are doing in Cambodia. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for your grace. We pray to give Jacob freedom, and so we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Oh, he's leaving already. That does not bode well.
Good morning. So, my wife and I'm sorry, I didn't expect this many people. My wife and I and my 1-year-old son, he's now 2, but he was 1 when we left for Cambodia about a year ago. I don't know who all is new or who all didn't know or who all haven't heard, but we spent 8 months in Cambodia with my in-laws, my wife's parents. It basically acted as an internship and learning about the mission field in Cambodia and helping out wherever we can, wherever we could. And so this morning what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the things that happened, some of the things I learned, and then some things about Cambodia. Actually, reverse order of those things, but we'll share those things with you. So I'm going to go ahead and start in here. Got lots of pictures for us to look at, lots of things for us to discuss. If you ever have any questions, just go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing I want to talk about in Cambodia is travel. This is not a very common method of travel, but we did it a couple of times. It's good if you want to go through a lake. There's always high water in Cambodia. The streets are often flooded, and there's many ways to get through the water. You can go by boat. Actually, this one is an interesting picture. We are going through the latrine. We are in the latrine here, and that's where we kayaked. We also travel a lot by truck. That was probably our second most common form of transportation was that truck. And I did ride in the back of it a few times whenever we had to bring the church somewhere or we were going somewhere with the church. I would often ride back there. They always loved riding back there with me because that gave them the opportunity. I was usually back there alone with all of the Cambodians, and that gave them the opportunity to feed me all different kinds of food I'd never had before, without my in-laws there telling me that it might be a bad idea. They actually gave me slaw malu, betel nut. Do you guys know what betel nut is? It's a numbing. It numbs your mouth and it numbs your teeth, and that was an interesting experience. Yes. Yeah. I was sick probably about half the time I was there. If you ever want to, one of the things I learned about missionaries in general is that missionaries are always sick. Always sick. And it has to do with genetics. It has to do with us not being used to the diseases and viruses that are over there. And sometimes it has to do with us just being ignorant. I had never had a parasite before, and so I didn't know what a parasite was like, and I had been there for several months living with these symptoms, and I didn't know what it was, and my in-laws finally said, I think you have a parasite. We went to the doctors. I took some parasite medications, and it was cured like overnight. It was amazing. So that's just one of those things, in America we don't really have to worry about parasites, so it's not something we know about that we understand the symptoms very well. So continuing on with travel, our most common form of travel was motorcycle. That is actually a motorcycle. It has a suspension. It's not a moped. It's got a little bit bigger of an engine than a moped would have. This is not electric. But it is a 125cc bike, so it's not very big, but that's what most Cambodians ride around on, and we fell in the realm of most Cambodians as far as living style. There's seatbelt. Cambodian seatbelt. It wasn't super common that she rode around like that, but I thought it would be a good picture to show. There's Jack on without a seatbelt. We only rode very short distances with him without a seatbelt. Cars are actually pretty... Many families in Cambodia do not have cars. So you would often see couples riding down the street with a newborn baby on a motorcycle like this that was born that day. Or a woman who looks like she's ready to burst, like she's really pregnant, on a motorcycle like that riding around. So that's interesting about Cambodia. Whenever we needed to bring the bike somewhere, we would just put them in the back of the truck like this. Another very common form of transportation in the city, if you didn't want to ride in traffic, was the tuk-tuk. Tuk-tuk. That's what this vehicle is right here. You just sit in the back. That's what most tourists ride around in because they don't want to drive in Cambodia because it can be very dangerous. And so that's what you see tourists riding around in all the time. To the right of the tuk-tuk, there's something called a PASAP, which is becoming very, very popular in Cambodia. You just bring up your cell phone, you push a button, and the PASAP comes right to you, and you tell it where you want to go on your phone, and you never even have to talk to the Cambodian. The Americans like that, and the Cambodians like that, because then they don't have to try to speak English to us. This picture is interesting. I just wanted to show you how some Cambodians travel. In America, we often have sleeper cabs or sleeper trucks where you can actually sleep inside your truck. In Cambodia, they don't do that. They just hang do you see that? A hammock. They hang a little hammock underneath the truck, and that's how they sleep whenever they take long haul trips. Okay, now I want to talk to you about some of the things that are available in Cambodia. There are several modern malls in Cambodia. Who here has ever been to a mall? I'm just curious because we're in Wyoming. Just raise your hand if you've been to a mall. Okay, I actually like the mall in Cambodia better than I like the mall there's no mall in Wyoming, but any malls around here. The people in Cambodia in the mall actually tends to be a lot more conservative. And so it's a lot nicer to go to a mall in Cambodia. Of course, this is in the city. We did not live anywhere near this mall. We lived about 6 hours away from this mall. But when we got to visit, we would go to the aquarium, take cool pictures with Jack. So that was a big painted wall in the mall and painted floor that we had Jack go stand on. I want to talk just a little bit about language. One of the hugest barriers between American missionaries or any missionary and the Cambodians is language. In fact, very few American missionaries in Cambodia speak Cambodian very well. It's considered a level 3 language, meaning it doesn't share hardly anything with English. Very difficult language to learn, sound-wise and reading-wise. I want to show you a little bit about reading in Cambodian. So this is how you would read a word. I have up here the word in Cambodian, bong rien. So if you look at the top at the Cambodian word, ignore all the arrows. Look at the top at the Cambodian word. That first character is the ba. The second character is part of iya. The third character is the r. The fourth character is the ng. The fifth character is also part of iya. And the last character is the n. So some people ask whether in Khmer you read from left to right or right to left. Well, it's kind of like back and forth. You got to like read the word as a whole going every which direction. So that's kind of neat. All right, who's ready to give it a try? It seems like whenever I talk to someone about my experiences in Cambodia, one of the things that they typically ask is, can you speak some Cambodian to me? Well, the language is called Khmer, but I'll say Cambodian now. Can you speak some Cambodian to me? So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you so that you can hear a little bit of Cambodian from my mouth. My wife laughs at me because I do speak with a little bit of an accent. But I'll go ahead and read this to you. This is a Bible verse. Deutschne, Parson ba bong paon, ba ruflang vin, rum chia moi prea kri men, jo spang ro kavaya vai no tan le, tia tan dal prea kri, gong no kansdam prea chimacha nufwin. And so that's a little bit of Khmer for you. That I just read that. That's a Bible verse up there. That's Colossians 3, verse 1. Just so you can hear a little bit of it with a little bit of my accent. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about food now. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I going just right? Just right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about food in Cambodia. This looks delicious. Raise your hand if you're ready to jump into that. I am. That's water buffalo. It's very yummy. This is a very typical Cambodian breakfast called Quy Tiêu. We went out for this breakfast very often. If you're curious, this cost about $2, $1.50, $1.25 for a bowl of breakfast in Cambodia. It's probably one of our favorite things to do. I do have some, I just want to throw this out here. I do have some Cambodian money that I brought back with me. $100 bills. I've got, I don't know, a few thousand $100 bills that I brought back with me from Cambodia. So if you would like a $100 bill, please come see me and I'll give it to you. I will tell you it's not worth $100 in American money, but I do want to give those away. Anyway, so this is about, how much in Cambodian money? 4,000? No, this, the Quy Tiêu, it's about 5,000 in Cambodian money. Okay. I'm sorry. This is rice noodles with pork and vegetables, which you don't eat because that's how you get parasites, but the Cambodians don't mind. And it's got a broth in it that is just the most delicious thing you will ever put in your mouth. I just absolutely love this food. You got sprouts on the right, and you have some sauce on the left. That's peanut sauce, and mixed in it is, I can't remember, hot sauce. And then you have coffee on the top right, and then tea on the top left. This is another delicious, this is street food. We often went out for street food in Cambodia whenever we could. If you didn't see tentacles in it, you knew it wasn't going to be very good. So we always got the food with tentacles. And what you see there with it is fish sauce, which is fermented fish. Very delicious thing to put on your food. It's very salty, and they don't use a lot of salt in Cambodia, so it's nice to have some salty food. Here's another dish of food. This is also Quy Tiêu, breakfast noodles, except it's got some fish in it and other things. This is the market in Cambodia. I wanted to show you the market. She is selling frogs and fish. Here's some more pictures of the market. And this is some more food. Sorry, I've got lots of food to show you. Food was one of our favorite parts about being there. You can get crepes in Cambodia. If we have any young people who are ever interested in going to Cambodia, maybe this will encourage you to go, that there's lots of delicious food in Cambodia. There's crepes. You might be sick all the time, but at least you're happy about some things you put in your stomach. You can get Korean food in Cambodia. These are Korean noodles. They are available in almost every single town. I've got some pictures here of people cooking. This is actually a woman in our church. We'll see her husband in a little bit. That's an old lady in our church. She is, how old is she now? She's got to be 70 years old, and she is probably the most agile old lady I've ever seen. She jumps off of a step about this tall, or taller than that, every day after church, and it just surprises me every time. Here's some other Cambodian women cooking with my mother-in-law. They're all cooking together. These are all women in our church, actually. And here's all the food they cooked. And that's one of the times where the church got together with family in a really backwoods part of Cambodia. One of the things I want to stress, well, that I haven't stressed, that I should stress, it's just the simple relationships that we got to have with everyday Cambodians as we went about living life. And one of the people that we built a good relationship with was our bread seller. The bread Jack is eating right there is bread he would cry for every day. He just absolutely loved it. It's called noom, very sweet bread, and it's deep fried, so it's very good. And we built a very good relationship with her and tried to have an impact on her and basically everyone we came across as much as we could. And we came across a lot of people. I wanted to show you Elizabeth's birthday cake because we went and I can't remember if we asked for a cow or a pig, but this is what they gave us. So, it's kind of neat. This is a picture of me sitting in a typical Cambodian restaurant. So there's got nice little huts everywhere you can sit in. The seats are really low because Cambodians aren't as tall as us, so that would be more normal for a Cambodian to sit in, probably. But I wanted you to see what that kind of looked like. We grew some of our own food. Those are mushrooms that we grew while we were there, and we put on our pizza. Okay. One of the things I want to talk to you about is medical things. Cambodia has a lot of unusual diseases that we don't have here. And malaria. The most common disease that came up a lot was dengue fever. Came up a lot. I don't know if you know a lot about dengue fever, but it's a real problem in Cambodia. It's transferred by mosquitoes. Typhoid fever, yellow fever. We actually had a missionary, not while we were there, but there was a missionary there who I personally came in contact with who actually lost his daughter to dengue fever. She became severely dehydrated, and they ended up losing her, and he's a missionary there to this day. So medical things are a big deal. Both Elizabeth and Jack, I got parasites. Elizabeth and Jack got E. coli. And one of the things that probably we don't think of a lot about missionaries is all of the unusual diseases they have to deal with. And it's not that they might deal with, it's that they will deal with. It seems like, I could ask my wife, but a lot of missionaries get dengue fever. I think your parents have gotten dengue fever. And one of her sisters has gotten dengue fever. It's very, very common, very, very unpleasant. And so you probably already figured this, but one of the things I'm expressing to you is ways that you can pray for missionaries on the field. And one of them is definitely these medical things. I took a picture of this just to show you something that happened in Cambodia. Yes? You cannot drink the Cambodian water. You can only drink bottled water, and you cannot drink all bottled water. You can't get the cheap bottled water. You have to get the good bottled water, or you will get sick. Antibiotics are probably available. Well, they are available over the counter, but what isn't available is doctors. So our nearest doctor was 6 hours away from us, to the nearest doctor. and that was only a small clinic. To get to a good hospital, Western doctor, we had to fly to Thailand. There wasn't one in Cambodia. So now this, we actually did get done at the small clinic in Cambodia. Cost about $7. Wouldn't it be nice to pay $7 for an ultrasound? All right. Raise your hand if you are squeamish about anything having to do with blood or needles or anything like that. Or is anybody squeamish? Everybody's too scared to admit it. Okay, you don't have to admit it, but I just want you, if you are one of those people, please close your eyes for a minute. And I want to show you something. I want to ask what you would do. We're in Cambodia. Both Elizabeth and I are in the bedroom. Jack is out in the living area. And we hear a thunk, and we hear Jack crying. And we come out, and this is what we see. Close your eyes now. Ooh. All right, that's enough. So you are 6 hours away from the nearest doctor, and the nearest doctor has no equipment to put your child under to suture that tongue. You would have to go to Thailand to get the tongue sutured. So I'm going to ask for a raise of hands. I haven't been getting the best responses with hand raising, but I'm going to try again. Raise your hand if you would take the 6-hour drive and probably the whole hassle of getting the flight put together, another 2-hour flight to get to Thailand to get that tongue sutured with your son put under. Okay, a lot of us are saying yes. How many of you would try to suture it yourself? Ooh, lots of hands. How many of you would do nothing? All right. Wow, that's pretty even. About a third of you in each category. Well, we fell in with the last third. We did nothing. But we did contact our doctor and send him a picture and say, hey, this is what happened. Really bad laceration in the tongue. What should we do? And he sent us a medical article about tongue lacerations that made his opinion very clear that it would actually be perfectly fine to do nothing in that situation. Although it was very, very, very unpleasant for Jack, because for the next 2 weeks he had trouble eating. All right, so I wanted you to know about that. Some of the things, you don't even think about it here. Here, if your kid lacerates his tongue, you just take him right down to the hospital, right? You don't even think about it. It's an easy, or gets any kind of cut that needs stitches. Question? Huh? We don't know. We don't know. But the floors are tile. He had a large trunk out there that he could have fallen off of. He liked to climb. He's a climber. He would climb on the trunk and fall off sometimes. And so we just guess he hit his chin with his tongue out. And baby teeth are sharp. They are sharp, sharp. Okay, I want to talk about Rattanakkeri. This is a trip that Elizabeth did not go on. My father-in-law and I went up to the very northeastern corner of Cambodia. It's the most tribal area of Cambodia. It's the only non-Buddhist area of Cambodia. And it's very primitive. A lot of the people there live very primitively. And if you go north of the Sisaphon River, there's a river up there. If you go north of that river, it's 100% primitive. They'd have no technology in those areas. So we're going to talk about our trip up to there. If I were to go to Cambodia for Bible translation, this is where I would go. So this is the airport. I'd like us to take a closer look at that right there. Rattanakkeri Airport, still in operation. You can actually go and fly a plane to this airport. They have traditional Cambodian religion in Rattanakkeri. Very, very few missionaries up there working with these people, and probably about a dozen languages, each with about 10,000 people or so without any sort of Bible translation. The people in this area tend to not know English Actually, none of the Jarai people, which is part of the Bible translation project I was working with up there, none of the Jarai people knew English, or none of them did. And then, Lord willing, if I'm ever able to make it back to Cambodian, I would work with the Poan people who are up here in Rattanakkeri, and they don't know Cambodian. They only know Jarai, so I'd have to learn Cambodian, which I know already quite a bit, and then I'd have to learn Jarai through Cambodian, and then Poan through Jarai to be able to make contact with the people. But I just wanted you to be aware of kind of one of the people groups that we were looking at working with. So in this religion, they have these spirit houses. They believe that the spirits live in these trees, and they build little houses for them to live in, and then they give all kinds of offerings to them. They'll put out hot bowls of soup and that kind of thing, and burn. Well, they don't burn incense as much here because they're not Buddhist, but in Buddhist parts, they would burn incense to the spirits. Here is a shrine to a demon. You see these all over the place. So they try to worship the good spirits and the bad spirits as well so that everybody's happy. This is a Thampuan grave, but it's very similar to a Puan grave. And it has, basically their thought is that when someone dies, they hang around and they're still going to want their stuff. So they make a little house for them and they put a lot of their stuff in there so that they don't go looking for it inside the living person's house because they don't want dead spirits in their house. That's what they believe. So that's a little bit about the Thampuan and the Poan. I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to zippity zip here. I want to show you a few pictures of where we lived in Bosat, Cambodia. So that's where we were for most of the time that we were there, in Bosat. That's the Bosat River on the right. That's my father-in-law on the right. And that's a bunch of kids who were just out playing by the river with no adults around. Probably not something we'd see a lot of in America, so I thought I'd show it to you. They're a lot more trusting. Here's the entrance into Bosat. That large urn there, it's called a patal, and it's the symbol of Bosat. We actually brought a few back with us. And getting closer to our home, this is from outside our balcony in Bosat. So you get an idea of what that looks like. The streets are very dirty. The market used to meet right there. These are some pictures of our house. This is where Jack slept. This is where we slept. This is our kitchen, very small. This is our bathroom. So on the left there, you see the shower head. It just sprays right into the toilet. Now, there's something here that doesn't belong in a Cambodian bathroom. You already know. Toilet paper. They don't use toilet paper over there. They use that. You see that little sink sprayer? That's the toilet paper. But we had toilet paper in our bathroom anyways because we weren't that native. Here is a typical Cambodian shower. This isn't our shower. We took a picture of one in a guest house because our bathroom was so small it's hard to get a picture of it. But that's a typical Cambodian shower. So some of us like tankless hot water heaters, and that's it. That's the hot water heater up there to the right. Our shower had one of those, which we were very, very thankful for. Here's me in my working space. I worked the entire time I was in Cambodia. I did software development and SEO, online advertising, right there in that chair for 8 months. Oh, I forgot to tell you that there's a shirtless man in this. These are our dishwasher. In Cambodian, it's very appropriate for guys to go around without shirts on. So that's not something we do in America, but in Cambodia it's very, very, very common. So you'd miss out if you didn't see that. But again, just building relationships with the people we came in contact with regularly. These were our clothes washers. We had a very good relationship with them. I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay. Well, these are our clothes washers. We had a very strong relationship with them. We really enjoyed building that relationship. Oh no, and the church is last. I'm already just about over time. Okay. So let's talk about the church real quick. We had a very strong relationship with our church. Jack did as well. She did not lead the singing in our church, but she was a very prominent singer in our church, and Jack had a good relationship with her. Oh, you wonder if your son is called to be a preacher. Just kidding. I don't know if that's what that means, but it's a good picture. The pulpit is on the floor because they do not have chairs in church. Everybody sits on the floor with their legs tucked behind them because it's impolite to have your legs pointing out towards anyone. This video is very special. I want us to watch it. Oh no, do we have sound from my computer? Okay, I don't know if this is going to work. We're just going to give it a shot. Nope, not working. Oh, is it? It was working? Oh. Don't worry, I'll try again. This is the church singing a traditional Cambodian hymn. And those are traditional Cambodian instruments. A lot of people were taking videos because there were guests. The instrumentalists there were guests in the church, so there's videos going on. All right. Unfortunately, we're shorter in time, or else we'd listen to the whole song. Okay. Here's Jack with his friends saying farewell. We had a good relationship with those girls. Those were actually the deacon's daughters and son. And here's the ladies group. I wanted you to see them and the time they had with Elizabeth. And was this a goodbye picture? Is that what this is? No, it's just a group picture. Okay. This is kind of special. We did have someone in the church get baptized while we were there, and I wanted you to see that. It's my father-in-law. You can't hear it, but it wouldn't matter. He's speaking Khmer. Right, so that was very, very much a highlight of our time there, so I wanted you to see that. There's the deacon in our church. His name is Pook. You could definitely pray for him, as really the conduct of his wife is disqualifying him from ministry. And he's been very, very, very faithful for years and years, so you can definitely be praying for him. The highlight of my time there in Cambodia was going to this man's house on the left. He's probably one of the most godly Cambodians I got to know while I was there, and I just loved going and visiting with him and worshiping with him. He always laughed at the way I spoke Cambodian. He thought my accent was very funny. But I just, without even being able to speak that Khmer super well and being able to completely understand everything about Cambodian culture quite yet, you could feel going to his home and seeing the way he interacts with his family. It was just, everything he did was characterized by the peace of God. And so I wanted to share that with you. This is his home. We all actually gathered at his home. His name is Pok, by the way. We all gathered at Pok home as a church to celebrate and fellowship with him and the family, because he lived way, way out in the Junabop. That's the Khmer word for way out, far away from any kind of civilization. And he saw that everyone was squished in here, and so he built this huge platform outside his house for the next time the church visited. And so that was kind of amazing. All right. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. but I did manage to make it through the whole slideshow. I don't know. I'm out of time. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, I want to. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to talk about that. You can also pray for Paul and his daughter. She's been experiencing persecution in school for being a Christian. So that's her right there. She's kind of the focus of the picture. And you can definitely pray for her. Elizabeth, do you know her name? I can't remember her name. You know, it's hard for me to remember names in English, but even more difficult to remember them in Khmer, because they have names that don't match with anything we have. So you can pray for her. You can pray for the church in general, as they don't have just all of the churches in Cambodia as all of the missionaries withdrew. Many churches can stand on their own. That's what they're made, to be able to do. But at the same time, it's helpful to have the teaching there. There is social persecution in Cambodia, not physical persecution. But social persecution can be very tough for them. They live in a Buddhist country. Nobody praises them for anything having to do with Christianity over there, like we would experience here often. So definitely pray for the church. And especially right now, as the deacon, the one main leader in the church is a deacon, and he's really struggling with his family. The church needs leadership, particularly in Posat. Did someone else? Yes. No, that's a hymn book. Yeah, so most of them were illiterate. He learned to read scriptures, and he was actually trying to teach his wife how to read so she could read scriptures as well. So that's kind of sweet that he's doing that. All right. Definitely yes.
Does the government want or try to shut these groups of churches down?
The government definitely has by far a lot more leniency towards the Buddhist groups than the Christian churches. But when the UN stepped in 1992, they required Cambodia to have freedom of religion. They haven't been necessarily the best at bringing that out, but the people there are actually live without too much government involvement in their lives in general. There's no taxation. Cambodians don't get taxed. And just the average person usually doesn't have to deal with the government or government rules on a daily basis. So most persecution would be from people in the town, not necessarily government. All right. Well, I've overstayed my welcome, but I definitely want to thank everybody for being so attentive. Definitely. I do want to say before I go, definitely be in prayer for the church in Cambodia. It's hard to express how many differences there are between here and Cambodia. They need your prayer. They have so many struggles that we don't even relate to or understand. We can live out our Christian walk here pretty freely, but a lot of times they struggle. They lose their livelihood. Actually, the deacon in the church, before he became a Christian, he was an idol maker. He made idols for people to bow down and worship to. And so becoming a Christian, what, does he lose his job? Well, I mean, he switched over to carving elephants instead. but not everybody is in that same kind of position. Anyway, so I just want you to be aware. I'm glad that I was able to share those things, and I hope that we can all pray for Cambodia better and for missionaries better now.
Jacob, can you just elaborate for 1 second? People can come in too, but do you know what your next step is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fill us in a little on that.
Okay, so right now I am working. Well, that's what I'm doing right now. I go to work I actually work for my dad's company, doing our best to finish paying off all of our outstanding debts. And as soon as that's done, we will begin deputation. And then, Lord willing, maybe go to Cambodia, maybe go to northeastern Cambodia. Been praying about that. But yeah, the main thing I'm doing right now is working. Making sure that everything's squared away with me and the government and whoever else before I leave. Be in prayer about that too, that things open up again. Because right now Cambodia is kind of closed. They're charging $3,000 for every single person who enters the country for like a COVID deposit. And so they're like kind of halfway closed. There's certain visas they're not allowing for anymore. And a lot of countries have closed themselves down to Americans over this whole coronavirus thing.
Thank you. Okay, we got a couple minutes before the worship service. Go ahead and